Welcome back to Future You. Jeff, I love Matt. I love his newsletter, Extra Points, and I love the conversation we just had, of course. And I really do think it's much bigger than folks often think in terms of how much it impacts the future of higher education writ large in this country. We got Matt's take on all that. But Jeff, I would like to hear it from you because, he's covering it. He thinks it's fascinating. You cover it from a very different angle, and you say this is fascinating as well and has large implications. But I want to ask the question in a slightly different way. What do you think the people you talk to and people out there consistently miss about athletics and higher ed that makes this such an important topic to understand?
Yeah, so Michael, I think everything in higher ed boils down to market position. And although leaders don't like to admit it, yes, you hew to your mission as an institution, but there's really a herd mentality in higher education, and strategy is really around, I think, differentiation at the margins, right? A lot of institutions really don't want to have a strategy that differentiates them at the core of what they do. But what I think is often lost in the siloed nature of institutions is how everything, and I mean everything, within an institution connects together. So I'm going to walk through kind of an example here at an R1 research university. So say its strategic plan might say it wants to gain more research dollars, right? They want to get more federal research dollars. So its vice president for research, it goes to the board of trustees to present a plan for hiring new faculty that will bring in all these new research dollars. Now, just to do that, to get those federal dollars, it's also going to require some institutional dollars to hire those faculty to kind of kickstart it and get going. So the leadership wants to, say, get more out-of-state students to bring in more revenue. But, every other state is doing that as well. So in this presentation by the vice president of research, that's followed by the vice president for enrollment and marketing, who says, well, what the institution really needs to do in order to attract more out-of-state students, we need to move up in the rankings. And that requires the institution to hire, more full-time faculty, improve their salaries. We need to use merit aid to buy better students with higher academic profiles from out of state, et cetera, et cetera. Again, all of this is going to cost money. Now, hold on a second, because I know you're probably wondering, well, where is this all going? And I'm going to connect it back to athletics. Because later in that day, say we're at this board meeting, the athletic director and the CFO, they have a proposal to expand the football stadium, for example. And maybe they want to do some work on the basketball arena where the basketball team plays. And the board maybe asks, what is the risk if they don't do this, if they don't spend this money? And the athletic director says, well, we're going to be left on the sidelines then during the next conference realignment. And that means leaving all those TV rights dollars on the table. But here's the thing, Michael, that no one in that boardroom likely did ask is, how is this all connected? How is our athletic conference, our market position, our rankings, our research standing? How is it all connected? Because it is at the end of the day. Because remember, when the Big Ten expanded and they brought in UCLA and USC and the ACC brought in Stanford, but both conferences, if you remember, they left Oregon State on the sidelines, they left Washington State on the sidelines. One thing I know the Big Ten looked at, and I bet the ACC did too, is the academic standing of those institutions. They looked at their research expenditures. They looked at their, overall market size, of course, of their TV market and things like that. Because at the end of the day, it's all connected. And we tend to think, athletics operates as this separate entity because maybe it does from a reporting standpoint. But it is part and parcel of the institution, whether we like it or not. And the university as a whole rises and falls on the strength of its athletic department. And in D1, that's about marketing, that's about revenue, that's about TV. And even in Division III, that's about enrollment, that's about filling seats with athletes. And I just want to stay 1 second here, Michael, on D3, because I may have mentioned this before, but I met this guy in reporting the new book. I call him the college closer, and when my book comes out, I'll talk a lot more about him. But I met him this summer, and he was, I was asking him, what are the risk factors of colleges and universities? How do we know when a college or university might be in trouble? And one of the things he told me is when they add sports, right? When they add a lot of sports. And, in Division III, we're seeing the largest growth in athletic participation of all the divisions right now, right? They added 17,000 athletes in 2002, 2003 alone across all of Division 3. You know, you take a small college like in Michigan, like Adrian College in Michigan, they have more than doubled their enrollment to 1,600 over the last 15 years. And you know how they've done it? They've added 30 sports teams, right? Synchronized ice skating, bass fishing, varsity cornhole, and things like that. 70% of the student body there are athletes, right? And, you know, we see this in other places as well, where athletics is seen as a way to kind of save the university, as Matt said. So that's why people should care. There are no silos in higher ed. Everything is connected. Everything is cross-subsidized.
Wow. Just a lot of wows in that, Jeff. It shows how interdependent, right, these institutions are. They can look modular with their departments and their majors and the college athletics, but they are it's a thicket nest, right, of interdependence. It also, hearing you say that, makes me reflect on Malcolm Gladwell's new book. I haven't read the book about how trying to avoid going beyond the tipping point is essentially the argument in it to keep things the status quo. He had an interview with our friend David Epstein recently in his newsletter where he talked about how, in essence, Harvard, his allegation, uses some of these, frankly, long tail of sports, rugby and other things, to actually prevent the campus from diversifying too much in any one direction and keeping a balance. Perhaps overly skeptical or cynical, but it is really interesting when you hear a number like 70% of students at a college are athletes. You have to reflect on it. And then I always come back to Joseph Ayoun's quote that he gave us on the campus tour, where higher ed is diverse but not differentiated. And listening to you, wow. Okay, so I was struck by another topic as well, Jeff, which is the frequency of transfers via the transfer portal now in athletics. And